Hey guys, welcome to another episode.
Hello, hello, hello. I hope everyone is staying strong and doing well.
Yeah, staying healthy. So tonight we have a final piece to our puzzle through our journey. A gentleman that we met some years ago when we were looking to put together a bill to assist us in making sure that Aiden was able to receive his medicine while he was in school. So tonight we have Phil Giltner, is the Director of Albany Operations for New York State Senator Brian Benjamin in Harlem. As a staff member of Senator Benjamin, he designs policies and legislative work relating to social and economic justice and criminal justice reform. Prior to that, he served in the Patterson and Cuomo administration at the Department of Agriculture and Markets. He currently sits on the board of directors at the Adirondack North Country Association, in an organization that promotes economic and social development in northern New York. Phil, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure. It's always nice to touch base with you. You guys are working with folks like you is one of the things that makes my work such a pleasure. So it's great to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and thank you, because you've been so supportive of us. And I mean, we spoke to you more often than we did with the senator, but you were always a guiding light and, keeping us abreast of everything when it came to putting Tanshin's bill together. I mean, even despite the fact that it did get stalled and that, pieces of it was taken and applied to current laws that are in place, at least we got the ball rolling, because the attention was needed to be put on that.
Yeah, I think that's the problem is, like anything, everybody who's first approaching any problem thinks it's simple. And, there's a saying that, if you think if the problem is simple, it's got a simple solution, then you don't understand the problem. And I think that's where we, what we experienced as we went through this. And you guys were super responsive and kept me honest. So I like that.
That's true. Now, when it comes to, because we were part of that process, but at the same time, we weren't really sure, like, what goes into putting a bill. What are the first steps? Like, you reach out to, like we did. Nina and I attended certain town halls. Nina met with Mayor de Blasio. I met with Senator Benjamin. And when we went to these town hall meetings, and we brought up the issue of having medical marijuana in schools, you had, deer eyes in the headlights. Like, they look at you like, no one's talking about that. Everybody's talking about, my rent's too high. I have no heating.
Yeah.
There's too much traffic in my neighborhood. But nobody's talking about medical marijuana. Okay. So we kind of caught him off guard, especially Benjamin. He's like, reach me in my office. And then, when my wife went to see de Blasio, he's like, call my people. We'll figure something out.
And he was actually very helpful, Mayor de Blasio.
At the time, yes.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing is, the guy whose name is on the door has people coming at him from every possible direction all the time.
Exactly.
And you can't prepare for everything that comes your way. Okay. So, they count on people like myself and other staff to field it. And then, it's almost like, something comes at you real fast. You got to slow it down in time to look at it. And this is kind of like what we do is we stop, we take a look at the thing when it comes our way, and we kind of figure out how we can address this problem. And I mean, we have, I don't want to say mountains or an army of them, but we have a lot of experts that I can turn to figure out, for example, in this case, what the state of the law is on medical marijuana, because you can't know every possible thing. You can't possibly know everything that comes your way. So this is what we do. We kind of take the story from you approach the elected and you say, this is my problem. And like you say, he might be a deer in the headlights. He might not know. He might not be ready to talk about that. But they turns around and this is what my job is, and makes it very interesting. Is you never know what's coming, but we got to make sense of it so we can do something. And so that's what we do.
Oh, great! And I appreciated that fact that he did take it. That Senator Benjamin did just say, you know what, I'm going to take this on. Let's do it. In reference to it, what was the factor that kind of like stalled it?
It's tough to say exactly. I think the legislature introduces over the course of 2 years. The Senate reviews something like 10,000 bills. Wow. So there's a lot of things to kind of sort through. And, some of them are never going to go anywhere. Some of them are compelling. They're obvious bills that then go through. But it's the sorting through in the matter of how much time and energy can you put into every given issue. So we kind of try to sort through and figure out, what are our chances of of getting this thing to move? Am I going to, if I only have a 6-month legislative session, am I going to use 2 months of it doing something that's never going to pass in the end? Or am I going to use a little time here to get this is going to pass and move a little bit further to a successful conclusion, maybe on a multiple year path? And it's a sort of a balance between the time and the energy you can put in. What is the likelihood? Let's just say you had a great bill to give everybody a puppy. Well, that's a nice thing. People would love it, but you're never going to do it. Mm-hmm. So are you going to spend a lot of time and energy giving everybody, promising everybody a puppy and not give them a puppy? That's not going to be any good. Yes. So, it's like kind of this balance between what's realistic, what you want to do because you want to make your mark as an elected official. You do it because you want to make a difference. And so you kind of try to balance out, how much energy can I put into this? What are the chances of success on that? And so on. So from the point of view of a legislator, that's what we do. But in terms of what, then we have to deal with the bureaucracy, right? Because they know they're the real experts. Like, you and I, we dealt with, the State Department of Education and the State Department of Health, and each one had its own agenda and its own priorities that we had to overcome. Right now, I mean, not to go into, again, not to get too detailed about, but remember, one of the things we found out as we were dealing was that schools did not feel that they could be put in a position where they would put other federal funding at risk by doing something the federal government told them they were forbidden to do.
That's true.
Right?
Exactly.
So we had to figure out a way to make it so that we didn't mandate them to do something, but make it so they could do something and that they could maybe deflect, maybe put them in a position that was sympathetic and they wouldn't put their federal funding at risk.
Okay.
Right? That was the balance that we had to try and strike with the education department.
So it's like the language had to be written a certain way.
Yeah, it had to be put in a way that was, that wasn't going to put them, because, like everybody in the education world and all the social services, that nobody ever has enough money. So to put any money at risk is something that's like a third rail.
Yeah. They
can't go near something that's going to make them lose money for something. And as we remember, this is the time of the Trump administration when they were banging the drum about being, all this craziness, and especially, medical marijuana and cannabis, those were sorts of things that they were going to try and quash. So people in school districts and in private schools and public schools were very nervous about doing anything that would draw attention from the people in Washington. So that was another thing we had to keep in mind. We had to find a way to get them to be able to help people, families like yours, and not put their other problems, their other funding at risk. It was very, very difficult balance.
It is. And I mean, did it take into consideration, I mean, again, we were probably one of only, if not the first family that's come to, I guess, Albany to address this issue.
In New York, yeah.
And especially in New York, because it was still early, too. The medical marijuana program was like 2014, and we came on board about 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I think that we met in 2018, like the beginning, like early, like January even, something like that, if I remember.
Yes, because we had the press conference in April.
Yeah.
Since then, how much has it changed for New York?
Well, it's interesting. We've had, obviously so much of the conversation rotates not around medical marijuana, but it rotates around recreational the last couple of years. But medical was, I've forgotten what year it was that the state, opened the gates for medical marijuana. But again, it was so constricted and so difficult and expensive that it was very, very slow in actually appearing in therapeutic use in any ways they could. And over the last couple of years, once we've gotten used to it, the small number of dispensaries that are out in the state, it's been incremental and gradual. And what's really last year, so 2019, 2020, well, really most of 2019, because 2020 was a wash. All the other stuff that happened.
It's a blur.
Yeah, but 2019 was the year we put some truth to the saying that marijuana was decriminalized in New York, right? Because it was officially decriminalized, but people were still getting stopped and frisked and locked up for possession and all that other stuff, right? Because there was like this thing where, for example, until 2019, you were allowed to have marijuana, but if anybody saw you having it in public, then that was arrestable.
Yes.
So the cops would say, empty your pockets. And so, oh, you just showed me something in public. See you later. And then they lock you up. So we got rid of stuff like that in 2019. And then now, of course, like I said, 2020 has changed everything. But the one thing it did, I think, this year was it opened the floodgates on people saying, well, for state revenue purposes, we should probably just, make it happen. I think that there's a lot of people who are saying, we just need the money. The state needs the money. And so that may be the last thing that pushes us to adult recreational marijuana legalized in New York. And that, of course, basically just removes all the stigma and everything that goes with what you guys are dealing with. And I think also the good news I hear in the news, and maybe I'm sure you probably know more of the details than I do, but I did see that the Biden people are looking at it too.
Yes,
we did see that. So my question is, do you think on a federal level, would it ever be descheduled?
I think it is coming. I think I was very excited when I read the news or when I read the news the last couple of weeks that the Biden administration is being much more progressive than anybody thought they were going to be.
Oh.
On everything, on every single thing. The only thing that they haven't done that has come out of the news that I wish they had done is to get rid of the stupid Space Force. But everything else, they are like really doing a lot of progressive things that we didn't expect they would be doing so fast. So who knows?
Well, if they're moving that fast, shouldn't be a concern. It's like, okay, is there a plan in place, or we're just going to go through this?
Oh, I think there's a plan. This is the one thing that's amazing. When I meet people who work in Washington or old Washington hands, the talent and the planning that is done out there is
nice.
Really remarkable. Really remarkable. I mean, I know, professionally and personally, people in Washington who have been doing Washington stuff for 20 or 30 years, and I am impressed by the level of talent that's there. So I don't think that the Biden people, just from what I can know from reading the papers, are flying by the seat of their pants. They have a plan.
Okay.
But again, I don't have any insider information. I just know when I read the paper.
Nice. No.
That's being honest. So in reference to the medical marijuana program, is it going to expand? Is it going to get better? Because there's times where I called in Albany and asked, especially Department of Health, do you have any aggregated data about who are the patients in a sense by demographics, by sex, especially as it relates to, pediatrics? Because I know that our son has a card and probably one of the first, if not the first kid to have one in New York State. So we're just like, I'm trying to figure out, hey, do you guys have them? It's just like, no. I said, you guys are not collecting data? No. I'm like
yeah, that sounds like the New York State government that I know.
Okay, never mind.
That's the same operation. Yeah. The problem is that, and this is the fruit of 40 years of starving government. It's just that when I worked at Ag and Markets, I started working at Ag and Markets in 2008 or 9. And I think we had 700 people on staff. And when I left in 2017, we were down to 500 people.
Wow.
And the expertise that you lose, because mostly people retired. It wasn't like they were laying people off left and right. They just let them retire and then they never refilled. And so every agency has got that kind of thing going on. And so they just don't have the people, they're supposed to conduct reports and statistics and everything else, and they just haven't got the manpower to do what they're required to do. To give you an example, I saw in my research recently, maybe 2 years ago, there was a bill in the city council in New York to review all the various reports that the mayor was supposed to submit to the city council. And it is, I believe, it's either 200 items or 200 pages. I can't remember which. But in any event, it was a list of reports that are just not done that they're supposed to happen. And it's just a statistical sort of thing that you would expect any properly organized government would do. But it's all in the books. They're supposed to do it, but they just don't have the manpower to do it. And I bet you that's what you're hearing about when they talk to these guys in health. They say, yeah, we'll collect it, but there's a guy in a cubicle, but he's got 1,400 other reports to do, and like, yours isn't at the top of the pile.
Yes. Okay, that's understandable. Totally get it.
Well, it's just terrible because it's we're not getting the government we paid for. The part of the deal is we agree to pay our taxes, we agree to be vote and be active, and then you go and do the things we expect you to. And it was like, sorry.
Yeah, it's not happening.
So, but I really honestly do think, and I think I've said this to you, Osiris, before, and I say it to people that I come and visit me at work all the time. This mess has been made over the last 40 years, and it's not going to be fixed in 1 year, and it's going to take us, a good long time. It won't take us 40 years to unscrew it, but we're going to have to unscrew it, and it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of cleaning up to do.
Yeah, but I think we have turned the corner. I really do. I think that this madness that we're seeing in the news is like the last dying gasp of the craziness. Just that it's just going. This is how I get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. And hoping it changes. Like, a new world.
Well, look at it's and I know that it sounds a little much to say, but the fact that you guys do what you do shows that we still have the right stuff. I have people who come to me. I had today people coming to me to talk about criminal justice stuff. I have people coming to me to talk about immigration stuff. I have people coming to me to talk to me about opioid addiction. And these are people who are doing it not because they're getting paid to do it. They're doing it because they think it's right.
Yes.
And I see people are doing a lot of great things every day. And it gives me faith that we will do the right thing as long as, we continue to answer our hearts, if you will. I don't need a little schmaltzy to say that, but
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that if the government can't do it, we'll take matters into our own hands. And it's either you support it, either the government supports us, or you just stay out of the way.
Yeah.
Because it's something that needs to be done.
We can do it. I wish we have to have the will to do it. And I think that you guys, you and I mean you, and not just you too, but I mean everybody in this line of work is making us do it. And I think that's a good sign.
It definitely is. Now, where do you see the medical marijuana program growing? Do you see it growing? Do you see it staying stagnant? Not stagnant. But
I think that it's going to grow in New York. I think you're going to see increase in dispensaries.
Okay.
I think you're going to see. I believe you'll see an increasing number of vendors. Mm-hmm. I think that with the growth of the recreational coming in, that's going to create a competitive pressure on the medical market, who will suddenly have people who are producing, maybe, I know that they try to, separate the two industries out from each other, but I think that they're going to create a pressure that's going to be competitive on them, so there will be better availability, better supply chains, and better prices. And I think that's going to, I think that that's sort of the long term, 5 or 10 years down the road, it'll be unrecognizable.
Yeah, and I also think once we do go recreational, I think there's still a lot of people who are scared to get the medical card because they're still hesitant. Mm-hmm. But I do think if it's recreationally legal, they then won't be as hesitant to use it for medicine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that destigmatizes.
Yes,
it will become
yes, exactly. Because I know there are people that have certain things going on, but they wouldn't. For example, I have a friend who suffers from migraines, but I said, "Won't you try the CBD?" They're still nervous, and so there's still that stigma. But I do think once the laws change, then hopefully, it would mitigate some of the stigma.
Well, if I remember correctly, was it 2 years ago? Even the Trump administration opened the door to through the Department of Agriculture to produce industrial
hemp
and to sort of kind of get things going in that way. And I think that's again tiny wedge to open the door. And I think, and I can't remember, because you guys follow this and I don't. There has also been some. Has there been a new regulation or new laws to increase the amount of study?
Yes.
Of as a drug, it's because it was always so forbidden, they never talked about it. But now there actually will be doing some studies which will help produce better product and everything.
Yeah, like more randomized controlled trials, more studies that, the medical professionals respect. So yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
But that's interesting because there's always been documentations. There's always been medical, journals about cannabis going back to the 1800s.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're definitely true, but it's not enough yet. Even if for some reason it's not enough yet. You're right, though.
Yeah. I just think that you're looking at what I think is a more mature approach to something that you should be mature about, and not just a bunch of crazy hyperventilating hysterics.
Yeah. Because I know that when I initially got involved in this industry and doing research, I looked for grants because it was an organization I was part of. One of the things that I was tasked with is finding grants to support the use of cannabis for medicine or for anything. And a lot of the grants were things to show the negative side. There was nothing looking for positive. Yeah, so they were throwing money for the negative side. So I'm like, okay, it's almost like trying to short the market. You just looking. No pun intended.
Yeah, so it's just on everybody's mind these days.
Yeah, right. But again, it goes to show that there was no real support for it, but yet there's a positive results of it. I mean, even the fact in medical schools they're not teaching about the endocannabinoid system, but yet we have it. And
no, I do think it sounds like they're getting more mature about it all.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's, and I mean that in both senses. In the one sense that yes, it's older, but I think also a more emotionally mature way of looking at things. It's just I can't believe that we've had to go through everything we've had to get here. But
yeah,
Exactly.
understood.
So the last question for you, Phil, in terms of let the audience know. So in New York State, if we have a parent that he needs a dose of his CBD, he has a medical card. What should the parent do if they go to public school in New York?
Well, there is that regulation that remember that regulation that we've talked about between us before, right? That lays out the procedures for a school to comply with what the state requires. Okay. And I'm sorry to say, in preparation for our conversation, I didn't pull it up in front of me, but I know I've sent. I've discussed it with you and Osiris recently.
Yes, I have it.
Right. And that's what you got to just print it out and wave it in front of their faces if they get.
Basically, I just wanted them to hear it from you. So basically, there is something you parents can do out there if you're in the situation where your child does need a dose in school in New York State. So. Yeah,
because this New York State regulation was put out. It was an emergency regulation. It was done. I've forgotten. Is it 2018 or 2019? Oh. That basically covers us on this, right?
Yeah. Was that happened like soon after? I think Senator Savino was part of that. That came like soon after that we had proposed our bill. That we found out that we have something already in the books. We just have to make some amendments to the educational law and the health laws to include those.
I think that's where we are. Yeah. And so as a result, I think that we're in a position that is like anything. It's good enough. It's not great.
Yeah, that's what we feel. Like that's what we Osiris and I were like, okay, what should we do about this? They're like, yeah, this is the best we can do right now.
Yeah, but we just keep sharing the message.
It's like it's the best enough.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, great work, everybody. Pat yourselves on the back.
Yeah. Great. We got it to the table. That's true. So basically, then what's happening is that it's not the. I guess you're bringing the 10 Commandments. You have it printed, but no one's bringing it down and enforcing it.
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
And I don't think the word gets around much.
It doesn't.
Because there's not, that people don't know. But that reg and you guys put together liner notes or whatever else you do. You can make a reference to that specific regulation, so that people who need that information can find it, and people in other states can see what we've done in New York, because it is published on the internet.
Yeah.
And you can find it no matter where you are.
Yeah, I just shared it with some people.
It's legalese, but it says, the chapter and verse, this is what you can and cannot do. And it does provide a stopgap. It doesn't solve all the problems, and it could conceivably go away, but it's not likely to.
Okay. Now, have the government considered working? Because as we talked about, you guys being short-staffed, and certain things are just not on top of the priority list when you're dealing with millions of people with millions of needs.
Yeah.
Have there been a consideration working with private organizations? Is it institutions that would help with certain parts of things that are just not really getting the attention? Like, let's say the data collection.
Well, still somebody needs to get paid.
Yeah, that's true too. Nobody does it for free, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking to people today, and there was an immigration group, and I think the group was called something like Speak English or something like that. And, and normally you don't hear people say something like that in the immigration sphere. No. But this group was like 120 years old, and it was founded to help people naturalize back in the 1890s and so on. And they have this whole title because in New York, unlike and I probably to a certain degree maybe in Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, but there was no in that time, the 1890s to 1910, there was no government structure, and so these private groups got together, like you're suggesting, Osiris, to do what needed to be done. And they raised their own money, and they found a benefactor to fund them, and they basically were a charity. And then that became over time, we got to a system where New York sends tax money to these private charities to run these social services. And that's how New York built this.
That's excellent.
In other states, they never had it. And so then, when Roosevelt came around with a New Deal and they built it from scratch, and the government came in and did it. But in New York, that's why we have all these nonprofits who do these amazing things, because they were there first.
That's interesting. I did not even know that.
And you said you liked history. Come on, buddy.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Well, we got to sit down and chat about history. Now,
we always can.
Thank you. Now, with the criminal reform, how's that playing out in the sense of people who've been incarcerated for years for cannabis, either possessions or for manufacturing, whatever the case may be? Is there a timeline for them to be released, or have they been being released, or is that contingent on their scale?
I honestly do not know the answer. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that we do have in the decriminalization law we passed in 2019 and that the governor signed, there is a record expungement provision so that if you have it in your record, you can get it cleaned out. Now, I don't know exactly how that works for those people who were already in the system who were locked up. I believe that people who were locked up, and again, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert on this, but it is my belief that anybody who was in the system at the time of the passage of the law who would not have been in the system and incarcerated would have had a release. But if you were, for example, a trafficker with bails and bails, obviously that was another story.
Yeah.
Right. But I believe that's what they did. But I honestly don't remember off the top of my head what we did about that. But I believe that's what they did. And I do know that we had the expungement so that you could go to the authorities and have your record cleaned up.
And now that's as far as it's going to go. Are there going to be any compensation for the time that they spent? Or it's just
no idea.
That would be a costly bill too to foot.
That would be costly, and actually, it's interesting. We have a bill that is in the criminal justice. It's not a cannabis bill, but we have a wrongful incarceration bill, and we refer to it internally as the Central Park 5 bill.
Wow.
That we're trying to find a way to compensate for those people who lost so much of their lives through wrongful imprisonment. I mean, that's the even crazier thing, right?
Yeah. So now, how does that apply with laws that were put in place that created that situation? Are they going to be amended so it doesn't happen, or are you just going to create another law to offset that?
No, they did. No, so for example, let's just say that, and I forgot what the amount is. Maybe it was an ounce. Just say for sake of example, that, you could have been locked up for having an ounce, but now you cannot be locked up for an ounce. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's no longer on the books. And what they do is they literally when we pass a new law, it erases that old section of law. So let's just say it's section 25 of the penal law, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And that section of 25 of the penal law just does not exist anymore. The law goes from 24 to 26. 25 just is gone.
And now moving down to law enforcement, they're updated on these changes as well.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. There are regular procedures to make sure the word gets out. And what happens is when you look at a bill, you'll see, depending on the complexity of the bill, the last section of the bill says when the bill goes into effect. So if it's a bill that, I have a bill that we're introducing related to prohibiting the use of spit hoods, right, which killed Daniel Prude up in Rochester last year. Wow. That will go into effect immediately. Boom. Tomorrow, as soon as the governor signs it, the governor would go and there are mechanisms. There's the Division of Criminal Justice Services under the governor, and they inform all the police departments.
Oh, wow.
So there's all these, like, remember how we started the conversation saying, if you think you know the solution, you think it's simple, you don't understand how complex everything is. Yeah. So there are systems in place to do things like that. So, but I understand that there are certain areas of law, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but there are certain areas of law that, like, every November, everything's timed out to cascade through in November. So everybody knows to expect a change in November or whatever it might be. It might be October or whatever. There are certain sections of law they do try to synchronize, but there are other ones that are immediate.
Now, has there been a plan put in place to help with destigmatizing cannabis use?
I wish there were. I do know that one of the biggest bills that's moving right now in the state legislature, the Marijuana Reform and Taxation Act, the MRTA, MRTA, yes, which is Senator Kruger's bill.
Yes, Senator
has spending to address people who were victims of the war on drugs, and I don't know if it includes. It must include some education stuff in there, which could conceivably play into the stigmatization part of it, but I don't think that it is explicitly so.
I would love to be part of that, especially the educational aspect, because that's something my wife and I, Dina and I, had discussed is, attending certain parent-teacher conferences, meetings, after school to talk to parents about CBD, because there may be a child in their classroom who may be using it and benefiting, so without having that stigma, because I know in middle school and high school, there are some kids who are going through the stigma of using it, especially out in Long Island and Westchester. So I know in the city, certain neighborhoods, they have that stigma. You smoke marijuana, you go to jail, or you're just, all the negative things that go with it. But, for a child who's using it for an ailment, there's something else. So that's one of the things of just that grassroots we thought of doing, and just helping parents understand, that child using it is not someone who's just using it just for fun.
Being a teenager is tough enough as it is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So now, what are your plans, as we close out?
I don't know. We're just helping Senator Benjamin be the best senator he can, right? Mm-hmm. We're working on, as we said, we're doing a lot of criminal justice stuff, a lot of social justice stuff. Mm-hmm. But, it's session now. Today's February 4th.
Yeah.
And our session runs from the beginning of January to June. And it's interesting now that we're doing everything virtually through COVID. It used to be a certain rhythm that you could kind of manage the chaos of it. But now with Zoom calls and things, it's 5 days a week of the intensity that we used to have for 2 days a week. So it's been very busy, and it's almost like just kind of keeping your head above water as we get through. Everybody's attention right now is focused on what's going to happen out of Washington to help us with the economic crisis caused, and that's really our highest priority is getting through the next couple of weeks or actually a couple of months, because we have to get the state budget together by April 1st. Yeah. And then from April 1st till the end of June, that's when we do a lot of things that are off budget, and there'll be a lot of exciting legislation. I think we're going to do. I think a lot of the things that we do will be, partly, obviously responding to rebuilding New York from the COVID thing, and then also a lot of attention is on this criminal justice stuff, because the last year was more than just the COVID crisis.
Yeah, it's been piling on. I'm just thinking that if Cuomo had really passed the bill a couple of years ago to allow for recreational in New York, that could have been able to offset now instead of
but it's interesting. The money isn't. The state budget gap is $15 billion.
Oh, never mind. Never mind.
and the estimated revenue for recreational marijuana in the first year is $60 million. So that's not even 6%, right?
No, it's a drop in the bucket. Yeah, they wouldn't even felt that ripple.
So it's a lot. I mean, there's just no combination of new taxes and spending cuts to get us where we go. The only way we can fix this is for help from the federal government.
Wow.
And we'll get there. I mean, we can get there, and the federal government has the power. I mean, they find that when they do these stimulus packages, that actually helps everybody. So, funny thing, when people have no money, you give them money, it makes things better. It's crazy. It's like magic.
Yeah, right. It's out of control.
So, it's not that difficult for people. Just get the stuff going, get the stuff flowing. And money is cheap. And we have a lot of things we got to build and fix. We got to get a lot of infrastructure stuff built because it's been falling apart for 40 years. So put people to work, and next thing you know. So I'm optimistic, but we have a lot to do in the next 6 months here in New York.
Great. I'm hoping we'll be part of that too, because we have ours as well. So hope we could be part of that rebuild. Phil, I just want to say thank you very much for spending time with us. I appreciate you and all the things you've done and helping our family as well as, putting together that bill.
Thank you so much, Phil.
My pleasure. It's always great to hear from you, and I look forward to talking to you again before too long.
Oh, yes, definitely. And we'll probably make another road trip up there to see what's going on grassroots-wise.
Well, when we open up. This year we're not open.
Oh, my God.
This year it's all on Zoom.
Oh, my God. Did you start growing a beard?
No, I've actually, I shave every day. And
like you're going to work.
I'm looking like a normal person because I'm bald. I'm practically bald. I shave my head anyway, so I don't have to worry about looking like a gypsy or anything.
Okay, no problem. Well, it'll be always great to see you. Hopefully soon. Okay, my friend.
All right.
See
you soon.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.